What if I told you something tonight that you cannot disprove? Not a riddle, not a trick, not a thought experiment with an easy answer waiting at the end. What if I told you something that the greatest minds in human history, philosophers, scientists, mathematicians, neuroscientists, have wrestled with for thousands of years, and none of them have been able to fully escape? Here it is. You might be the only conscious being in the entire universe. Not the only important person, not the only person who matters, the only person who actually exists. Everyone else, every human being you've ever seen, spoken to, loved, argued with, passed on the street, watched on a screen, every single one of them might be a construction, a projection, a detailed, convincing, incredibly elaborate dream, produced by your own mind, your mother, your closest friend, the person lying next to you right now or in the next room, the billions of people you have never met, living their lives in cities you have never visited, speaking languages you have never heard. All of them might be nothing more than your mind's creation. And here's the part that makes this genuinely unsettling rather than simply strange. You cannot prove otherwise. This is the theory of solipsism. And tonight, as you drift towards sleep, we are going to explore it, slowly, carefully, and deeply, until you understand not just what it says, but why it says it, where it comes from, why it refuses to go away, and what it quietly reveals about the nature of consciousness, reality, and what it means to be you. Take a breath. Let your body settle into wherever you are right now, because we have a long, beautiful journey ahead of us tonight, and there is nowhere you need to be, nothing you need to do, just this voice, just these ideas, just the slow unwinding of one of the most profound questions the human mind has ever asked itself. Let us begin. The word solipsism comes from Latin, two words joined together. Solus, meaning alone. Ipsa, meaning self. The self, alone. It is the philosophical position that the only thing you can be truly, completely, 100% certain exists is your own mind, your own consciousness, your own experience of being aware. Everything else, the chair you are lying on, the ceiling above you, the sounds you hear, the people you know, the entire physical world stretching out in every direction around you, all of it is known to you only through your senses and your mind. And your senses and your mind, as we are about to see, are not entirely trustworthy. They can be fooled. They have been fooled. And if they can be fooled even once, then the question becomes, how do you know they are not being fooled right now? This idea has a long history, a surprisingly long one. Ancient Greek philosophers touched on it. Hindu philosophy came remarkably close to it thousands of years ago. Descartes danced around its edges in the 17th century. Bishop Berkeley built an entire philosophical system that led directly to its door. And modern neuroscience, with everything it has discovered about how the brain constructs reality, has given it a strange new credibility. But before we go through that history, I want you to feel it. Not just think it. Feel it. Right now, in this moment, close your eyes if they are not already closed. You are aware of being aware. That much is undeniable. Something is happening inside you. Some kind of experience. You are receiving information, sound, temperature, the weight of your body against the surface beneath you. And something is processing that information and producing the sensation of being here, being alive, being conscious. That inner experience, that sense of I am, that is the one thing in the universe you cannot doubt. But now ask yourself this: where does all the rest of it come from? The sounds you hear? They enter your ears as vibrations in the air, get converted into electrical signals, and travel along nerves into your brain, where your brain interprets them as sounds. The sounds themselves, the actual experience of hearing, happens inside your head, not outside it. The things you see are light enters your eyes, hits the retina, converts into electrical signals, travels along the optic nerve, and gets processed by the visual cortex at the back of your brain. What you experience as vision, color, depth, shape, movement is not the world itself. It is your brain's model of the world, built from information, interpreted, constructed, the things you touch. Nerve endings in your skin fire in response to pressure, heat, texture. Those signals travel to your brain. Your brain creates the sensation of touch, the experience of feeling something solid and real. Everything you have ever experienced has come to you through this same process. Information gathered by your senses, converted into signals, sent to your brain, interpreted, turned into the rich, detailed, convincing experience you call reality. You have never experienced the world directly. Not once, not for a single moment of your entire life. You have only ever experienced your brain's interpretation of signals, your mind's model of what might be out there. And the question that Solipsism asks, quietly, calmly, with devastating patience, is this: what if there is nothing out there? What if the signals are being generated internally? What if the model your mind has built is not a model of an external world, but the thing itself, a self-contained, self-sustaining dream that has been running since the moment you first became conscious? What if you are alone in a universe of your own making, and you have simply never realized it because the dream is so detailed, so consistent, so utterly convincing that the idea of waking up has never seriously occurred to you? Think about this as you breathe. You cannot find a hole in it yet, can you? Let us go a little deeper. In 1641, a French philosopher named René Descartes sat down to do something radical. He was going to doubt everything. Not just things he was uncertain about, not just things he disagreed with, everything, every belief he had ever held, every assumption he had ever made, everything he thought he knew. He wanted to strip away all of it and find what remained. He wanted to find the bedrock, the one thing that could not be doubted no matter how hard you tried. So he began asking questions. Can I trust my senses? He thought about it carefully, and he had to admit, no, not completely. His senses had tricked him before. He had seen things from a distance that looked like one thing and turned out to be another. He had heard sounds he misidentified. He had dreamed of things that felt completely real while he was dreaming. The warmth of sunlight, the texture of fabric, the faces of people he knew, and only discovered they were not real when he woke up. If his senses had deceived him even once, how could he be certain they were not deceiving him right now? So, senses, doubted. Can I trust the external world? Well, the external world is known only through his senses, and his senses are not reliable. So, external world, doubted. Can I trust mathematics? 2 + 2 = 4. Surely that much is certain. But then Descartes imagined something that genuinely disturbed him. He called it the evil demon. What if there existed a being of supreme power and supreme deceptiveness, an evil demon, Kichin, whose entire purpose was to deceive him? What if this demon was feeding him every experience, every memory, every sensation, every logical conclusion, all designed to mislead? What if every time Descartes thought 2 + 2 = 4, the demon had arranged reality so that this felt true while being completely false? It sounds like science fiction. It sounds like the plot of a movie. But here's the thing. It cannot be disproven. You cannot rule out the evil demon. You cannot step outside your own experience to check whether there's a demon feeding you false information, because you have no way of stepping outside your own experience. Your experience is all you have. So Descartes kept stripping things away. The world, the body, the senses, logic, mathematics, other people, time, space. All of it went until he was left with one thing that could not be doubted no matter how hard he tried. The fact that he was doubting. You cannot doubt the doubting. If you try to doubt whether you are thinking, you are already thinking. The attempt to doubt is itself evidence of thought. And thought requires a thinker. Cogito, ergo sum. I think, therefore I am. This is the famous conclusion, and it is the bedrock Descartes was looking for. But notice something. Notice what Descartes could prove and what he could not. He could prove that he existed, his own mind, his own consciousness, his own experience of thinking. He could not prove, using the same rigorous logic, that anything else existed, not the world, not other people, not even his own body. He found his way back to the external world eventually through an argument involving God that most philosophers today find unconvincing. But that bedrock moment, that moment of pure, stripped-down certainty, is essentially solipsism. The self, alone, certain only of itself. Now let us move a few decades forward, from France to Ireland. A philosopher named George Berkeley took Descartes' reasoning and pushed it somewhere even stranger. Berkeley noticed something that seems simple, but has enormous implications. We never experience matter directly. We only ever experience our perceptions of matter. You do not experience a table. You experience the sight of a table, the feel of a table, the sound of a table when you knock on it. All of those experiences happen in your mind. The table itself, the actual physical object, is something you are inferring exists. You are assuming it is there because your perceptions suggest it is. But what if matter does not actually exist at all? What if the universe is made not of physical stuff, but of perceptions? What if reality is, at its deepest level, mental rather than material? Berkeley argued that objects exist only when they are perceived. Es est percipi. To be is to be perceived. The table in front of you exists because you perceive it. When you leave the room and no one is looking at the table, does it still exist? Berkeley said yes, but only because God is always perceiving everything. God is the infinite mind whose continuous perception holds the universe in existence. You can find Berkeley's solution to the problem unconvincing, as many people do. But his diagnosis of the problem is striking. He identified something real and important. Everything you know about the world comes through perception. Perception happens in the mind. And if that is true, then in what sense does anything exist independently of a mind? A later philosopher summarized the problem with a joke that became famous. There once was a man who said, God must think it exceedingly odd if he finds that this tree continues to be when there's no one about in the quad. And the response from the other direction, Dear sir, your astonishment's odd. I am always about in the quad, and that's why the tree will continue to be, since observed by yours faithfully, God. It is funny. But underneath the humor is a genuine puzzle that nobody has cleanly resolved. What does it mean for something to exist when it is not being perceived? What does existence mean, independent of a mind that is aware of it? And if existence requires a perceiving mind, whose mind is doing the perceiving? Yours. Let us slow down a little now. Let your breathing deepen. We have covered the essential argument, the basic architecture of solipsism, the reason it refuses to be dismissed with a wave of the hand. You are a conscious being. You have experiences. Those experiences are undeniably real to you. But all of your evidence for a world beyond your experience comes through your experience. And your experience is produced by your mind, which means your mind could, in principle, be producing everything. Not in a crazy way, not in a scary way, in a very quiet, very simple, very logical way. The dream is convincing, the model is detailed, the characters are consistent, the physics holds together, the world behaves predictably, Memory creates continuity. Time moves in one direction. Causes produce effects. Everything you would expect from a real external world, everything that would distinguish a real world from a very good dream, is present in your experience. And that, of course, is exactly what you would expect if the dream were good enough. Take a slow breath. We are going to go deeper now, much deeper. Solipsism did not begin with Descartes. It did not begin with Berkeley. It did not begin with any Western philosopher. The oldest recorded flirtation with this idea comes from ancient India. In Hindu philosophy, particularly within the school of thought called Advaita Vedanta, there is a concept called Maya. It is usually translated as illusion, but that translation loses something important. Maya does not mean that the world is fake in the way that a stage set is fake. It means that the world as we perceive it, the multiplicity of separate things, separate people, separate events, is not the deepest truth of reality. Beneath the apparent multiplicity, according to Advaita Vedanta, there is only one thing, one consciousness, one awareness, undivided, unlimited, without boundaries. The Sanskrit word for this fundamental reality is Brahman. And the extraordinary claim of Advaita Vedanta is that Brahman is not separate from Atman, from the individual self. They are the same thing. You are not a small piece of consciousness in a universe full of other things. You are the consciousness that the universe is made of, temporarily experiencing itself as a separate individual. Aham Brahmasmi. I am Brahman. This is not solipsism in its strict philosophical form. It is not saying that other people do not exist. It is saying something perhaps even more radical, that what you think of as other people, and what you think of as yourself, and what you think of the universe are all expressions of the same single thing. One infinite awareness, dreaming an infinite dream of multiplicity, the separation you experience between yourself and everything else is the illusion, not the existence of things, but their separateness. Let that settle for a moment. You breathe in, the air enters your body. For that moment, where is the boundary between you and the air? You breathe out. Where does your breath end and the room begin? The boundary between self and world is something your mind draws. It is a convenience, a useful fiction that allows you to navigate. But it is not necessarily a feature of reality itself. In ancient China, the philosopher Zhuangzi sat down one night after a dream and wrote something that has been puzzling people ever since. He had dreamed he was a butterfly fluttering through the air, completely unaware that he was a human being, just a butterfly, being a butterfly in a butterfly world. Then he woke up and was a man again. But now he could not shake a question. Was he a man who had dreamed he was a butterfly? Or was he a butterfly now dreaming he was a man? How do you tell the difference between dreaming and waking? Not in a practical, everyday sense. You know perfectly well that when your alarm goes off in the morning, you are waking up, not entering a dream. But in the deep philosophical sense, in the sense that matters. The butterfly in the dream had no idea it was dreaming. What makes you certain that your waking life is not the dream? Dreams feel real from the inside. Whatever you are experiencing right now, the weight of the blanket, the sounds of the room, the feel of the pillow, these feel real from the inside too. What distinguishes them? You might say, dreams are less consistent. Things change suddenly. Physics misbehaves. People transform into other people. The setting shifts without explanation, but have you not also had dreams that were perfectly consistent, that had their own internal logic, that you could not distinguish from waking life until the moment you woke up? And if such dreams exist, if your sleeping mind can produce experiences indistinguishable from waking reality, then what exactly is waking reality doing that dreams are not? What is the test? What is the experiment you could run right now to verify that you are awake rather than dreaming? Take your time with this question. There's no hurry. Let us move forward now to a different tradition, to the Western philosophical conversation that was in many ways launched by Descartes and has never quite ended. After Descartes identified the certainty of his own existence and the uncertainty of everything else, philosophers spent the next several centuries trying to rebuild knowledge on firmer foundations. trying to find a way from I think. Therefore, I am back to, and here's how I know the world is real and other people exist, and mathematics is reliable. Most of them succeeded to their own satisfaction, but not to everyone else's. John Locke argued that the world sends information to our senses, and while we cannot know things directly, we can trust that our sense impressions correspond to real qualities of real objects. He distinguished between primary qualities, things like shape and size, that exist in objects themselves, and secondary qualities, things like color and smell, that are produced by the interaction between objects and our senses. This sounds reasonable. But Berkeley immediately pointed out a problem. How does Locke know that primary qualities exist independently of perception? He knows about them only through perception, just like secondary qualities. The distinction collapses. Everything is perceived. Nothing is directly known. David Hume took the skepticism even further. Hume looked at what he actually knew from direct experience. He found sensations, emotions, thoughts, impressions, ideas, one thing following another. But he could not find a self. Look for yourself right now. Close your eyes for a moment and try to find the thing that is doing the experiencing. Not any particular experience, not a thought or a feeling or a sensation, but the thing that is having those experiences. The observer, the self. What do you find? More thoughts, more sensations, more impressions. But the self, the observer, seems to slip away every time you try to look directly at it, like trying to see your own eyes with your own eyes. Hume concluded that the self is not a thing you find through introspection. It is something your mind constructs. A kind of narrative, a story, stitched together from the continuous stream of experiences, creating the impression of a unified, continuous being where there might just be a stream of moments. This is disturbing in a different way than solipsism, because solipsism says you are the only real consciousness. But Hume is asking, are you even really a unified consciousness? Is there a coherent you at the center of all this experience? Or is you just another story? Think about what you were doing 3 hours ago. You have a memory of it, a record, something your mind is retrieving and presenting to you now as evidence of a continuous self that persisted from then to now. But you were not conscious for every moment of those 3 hours. Your attention drifted, you slipped into automatic behavior, you did things without thinking about them. There were moments, perhaps many moments, when there was activity, but no particular awareness of activity. The continuous unified self is partly a construction of memory. It is the story your mind tells about the series of experiences and states it has passed through. A story with a protagonist, you moving through time, accumulating experience, remaining somehow the same person from moment to moment. But are you? The atoms that make up your body are constantly being replaced. The cells turn over. The neural connections that encode your memories and personality are constantly being modified, weakened, strengthened, rerouted. The you of 10 years ago had different beliefs, different fears, different habits, probably different people in your life, perhaps a different home, different work, different daily rhythms. In what sense are you the same person? The philosopher Derek Parfit spent much of his career thinking about this question. He concluded that personal identity, the thing we think of as the continuous self, is less deep and less important than we usually assume. What matters, he argued, is not that some metaphysical self persists through time, but that there is psychological continuity, that the person you will be tomorrow remembers being you today, has your beliefs and memories and intentions, continues your projects and relationships. Identity, in his view, is a matter of degree, not a binary thing, not either you or not you, more like a river. The Thames at its source in the Cotswolds and the Thames at its mouth in the North Sea are the same river in name and in the sense of continuous flow, but the water is entirely different. The banks have changed. The depth and width have changed. The river has been joined by countless tributaries and has been shaped by forces it had no way of anticipating. You are something like that, a river of experience, continuous in the sense of one thing flowing into the next, but not fixed. not identical at every point, not the same thing at the end that it was at the beginning. And if the self is a river or a story or a construction, then the question of whether you are the only real person in the universe becomes even stranger. Because first you have to ask, who exactly is the you in that question? You, Immanuel Kant, writing in Germany in the late 18th century, tried to chart a middle path between the radical skepticism of Hume and the naive assumption that we know the world directly. Kant argued that the mind does not passively receive information from the world. It actively structures that information. It imposes categories, space, time, causality, onto raw experience, organizing it into a comprehensible picture. The world as it is in itself, the Ding in sich, the thing in itself, is completely inaccessible to us. We never know it directly. We only ever know the world as it appears to us, already filtered and organized by the mind's categories. This is not solipsism. Kant thought the external world existed. He thought things genuinely are out there causing our experiences. But his point is that what we experience is never the world as it is. Always the world as our minds have shaped it. Always the world already run through the filter of human consciousness. Space is not something out there in the world. Space is the form that the mind imposes on experience, the way of organizing sensations into a picture of things existing next to and separate from each other. Time is not something out there in the world. Time is the form that the mind imposes on experience, organizing it into a flow from past through present to future. Cause and effect is not something out there in the world. It is a category the mind uses to make sense of sequences of events, to turn bare succession into meaningful pattern. What we call reality, then, is always partly a product of the mind's organizing activity. Not entirely, Kant was clear that there is something out there generating the raw material of experience. But the shape that raw material takes, the organized, comprehensible, navigable world we actually experience, that is a joint production, something out there. And the mind making sense of it, the world you live in is not purely the world. It is the world as organized by a human mind. And other minds, if they exist, might organize it differently. This opens something fascinating. Not just philosophically, but experientially. Think about how differently the same event can be experienced by different people in the same room. A piece of music plays. One person finds it beautiful. It reaches something in them that they have no words for. They sit very still and let it wash over them. Another person finds it irritating. It hits frequencies that bother them. They look for the nearest exit. A third person is barely paying attention. They are thinking about something else entirely. The music registers as background noise. Same music, same room. Same physical sound waves moving through the same air. 3 completely different experiences. Which one is the correct experience of the music? All of them. None of them. The music as it is in itself, the thing in itself, is not accessible to any of them. Each of them is experiencing the music as organized and interpreted by their particular mind, shaped by their particular history, their particular nervous system, their particular emotional state in this particular moment. Now extend this. If the experience of music varies this much from person to person, how much does the experience of the entire world vary? Not just the emotional response to events, but the basic shape of experience, the way time passes, the way space is organized, the way events flow into each other, the way other people appear. Each mind living in a world it has partly constructed, each mind inhabiting a version of reality, slightly different from every other mind's version. And all of these versions, billions of them, each one slightly different, each one partly real and partly constructed, all of them, overlapping and intersecting, and sometimes communicating and sometimes completely failing to communicate. The philosopher Thomas Nagel's point about bats applies to human beings too. There is something it is like to be you. There is something it is like to be every other human being. And those experiences are genuinely different. Not just in the surface details. Different memories, different preferences, different knowledge. different in their basic texture, their basic quality, their basic way of being in the world. You will never know what it is like to be anyone other than you. And that is not a failure. That is the condition of being a conscious individual. That is the condition you have always been in. The mystery has always been this close. Let us rest here for a moment, breathe. The thinking has been dense, and the ideas have been stacked on top of each other quickly. Let them settle now. You do not need to hold all of this in your mind at once. You do not need to resolve anything. These are questions that have not been resolved in thousands of years. They will not be resolved tonight. Tonight, the only task is to float among them, to feel their weight, to notice what they open up. The room around you may or may not exist in the way you think it does. The people you know may or may not have inner lives. You yourself may or may not be the unified, continuous being you assume yourself to be. And none of that changes anything about right now. Right now, in this moment, something is experiencing something, some kind of awareness is happening. And that awareness, whatever it is noticing the sound of this voice, the comfort of wherever it rests, the slow passage of time. That much is undeniable. Everything else is up for question. And questions, tonight, are the point. Now let us do something different. Let us step away from philosophy for a moment and look at what science, specifically neuroscience, has discovered about the brain in reality. Because some of the most striking support for a solipsist picture of the universe does not come from philosophers. It comes from neuroscientists who study what the brain actually does, and what they have found is both extraordinary and strangely familiar. Consider what happens in your brain right now as you listen to these words. Sound waves are entering your ears. They vibrate tiny structures. The eardrum, the ossicles, the fluid in the cochlea, and those vibrations are converted into electrical impulses. Those impulses travel along the auditory nerve to the brainstem, then up to the auditory cortex. But here's where it gets interesting. The auditory cortex does not simply decode these signals and present them to consciousness. It interprets them. It compares them to patterns stored in memory. It applies learned associations. This sound means a voice. This pattern means language. These phonemes mean these words. It filters out background noise by predicting what is relevant and what is not. It fills in gaps. When part of a word is masked by another sound, the brain fills in what it expects to have heard. You hear words, but the brain constructed those words from fragments, from probability, from pattern recognition and expectation. The experience of hearing this voice is a construction. A good one, an accurate one, but a construction nonetheless. Now extend this to vision. Your eyes are remarkable instruments, but they have a blind spot, a place on the retina where the optic nerve connects and which has no photoreceptors. Nothing can be seen in your blind spot. If an object is precisely aligned with your blind spot, you cannot see it, and yet you do not experience a hole in your visual field. You do not see a gap, a blank space, a region of absence. Your brain fills it in. It looks at the surrounding visual information and infers what should be there and adds it to the picture. You are right now seeing things that your eyes are not actually seeing. Your brain is painting them in, completing the picture, making the world look seamless and whole. This happens in many other ways too. Your vision is sharp only in a small central region, the fovea where photoreceptors are densest. The peripheral vision that surrounds your sharp central vision is much lower resolution. But you do not experience low resolution edges to your visual field. Your brain fills in the periphery based on expectation and movement. Your eyes make rapid, jerky movements called saccades, tiny jumps from point to point as they scan a scene. You are not aware of these movements. The world does not appear to jump around every time your eyes do. Your brain suppresses the visual information during saccades and smooths out the experience into a stable, continuous picture. You are not seeing the world. You are seeing your brain's edited, filled in, stabilized, completed model of the world. And this is normal. This is how every human brain works. This is not a malfunction. It is the ordinary operation of the most complex object in the known universe, doing what it evolved to do, creating a stable, navigable representation of the environment. But notice what this means. It means you have never, not once, seen the world directly. Every scene you have ever looked at, every face, every landscape, every room, every book page, has been a reconstruction, a rendering, a model built by your brain and presented to you as reality. Your brain does not passively receive information from the world and show it to you like a movie screen. Your brain actively predicts the world. At every moment, your brain is running a model, a simulation of what the world is probably like based on past experience, memory, and expectation. It uses incoming sensory information to update and correct that model. But the model comes first. The prediction comes first. The raw sensory data arrives and gets checked against what the brain expected to find, the simulation. Every scene you have ever looked at, every face, every landscape, every room, every book page, has been a reconstruction, a rendering, a model built by your brain and presented to you as reality. Your brain does not passively receive information from the world and show it to you like a movie screen. Your brain actively predicts the world. At every moment, your brain is running a model, a simulation of what the world is probably like based on past experience, memory, and expectation. It uses incoming sensory information to update and correct that model. But the model comes first. The prediction comes first. The raw sensory data arrives and gets checked against what the brain expected to find. Your conscious experience of this moment, the sound of this voice, the feel of the surface beneath you, the sense of the room around you is your brain's best guess about what is out there, informed by your senses, but not identical to anything actually out there. You are living in a simulation right now, not a technological simulation created by someone else, a biological simulation created by your own brain, a constantly updated, constantly corrected, remarkably accurate simulation of a world that you never directly experience. Neuroscientists call this the brain's predictive processing model. It is one of the most influential ideas in contemporary neuroscience, and it has implications that its proponents are still working through. Because if what you experience is always your brain's model, rather than the world itself, then the question becomes, how closely does the model match the world? In everyday life, pretty closely. Close enough to survive, close enough to navigate, close enough to feel real. But we know the model can go wrong. We know about hallucinations where the brain generates experiences with no external cause. People who experience psychosis sometimes see things and hear things and feel things that are completely real from the inside, indistinguishable from ordinary experience, but have no external source. We know about phantom limb syndrome, where people feel sensations, including pain in limbs they no longer have. The limb is gone. The external source of sensation is gone. But the brain's model still includes the limb, and so the sensation persists. We know about dreams, where the brain's model runs without any external input at all, generating experiences of extraordinary vividness and coherence from entirely internal resources. All of this suggests that the brain is capable of generating experience in the absence of an external world. It does not prove that it is doing so right now, but it raises the question: if the brain is capable of generating complete, convincing, internally consistent experience with no external cause, and we know it is because it does exactly that every night when you dream, then what exactly rules out the possibility that all experience at all times is generated this way? What is the test? What is the experiment? What would waking up from the dream of ordinary experience look like? There is a thought experiment that brings this into sharp focus. It is called the brain in a vat. Imagine that a scientist, brilliant, unethical, in possession of technology far beyond anything we currently have, has removed your brain from your body and placed it in a vat of nutrients that keep it alive. Connected to this brain are electrodes that feed it precisely the right electrical signals to produce any experience the scientist chooses. The scientist chooses to give your brain the experience of being a normal human being, living a normal human life in a normal human world. From inside that experience, everything feels completely real. The people feel real. The physical world feels real. The sensations feel real. Your memories feel real. Your sense of being a person in a body, living a life, feel real. But none of it is. Your brain is floating in a vat. There is no body. There is no world. There is no life being lived. There is only the experience produced by electrodes, perfectly mimicking a reality that does not exist. Now, here's the question. How would you know? What test could you run right now to determine whether you are a brain in a vat? Every test you could think of would use the very senses and the very reasoning that the vat is producing. Every piece of evidence you could gather would be evidence generated by the simulation. Every thought you could have about the test would be a thought generated by the electrodes. There is no test. There's no way out of the circle. The philosopher Hilary Putnam famously argued that we cannot even coherently refer to the possibility of being a brain in a vat, because the words and concepts we would use to describe the vat are themselves products of our experience, which in this vat scenario are all simulated. His argument is clever but contested. What most people feel intuitively when they encounter the brain in a vat scenario is not logical refutation, but something more uncomfortable. A moment of genuine uncertainty, a recognition that the question cannot be dismissed as obviously silly, a quiet sense that the ground under your feet, the reality you navigate every day with complete confidence, has no absolute foundation, that it rests on trust, on assumption, on the deep, unexamined belief that the signals coming in from outside correspond to something real outside. And the belief is probably right. Probably. Let your breathing slow a little more now. We are past the midpoint of the philosophical argument. You have heard where this idea comes from ancient India, from ancient China, from Descartes and Berkeley and Hume, from modern neuroscience, from thought experiments that have occupied some of the greatest minds of the last 4 centuries, and none of them have found a clean way through it. None of them have found the experiment that definitively proves other minds exist, that the external world is real, that you are not the only conscious being in the universe. This does not mean the external world is not real. It means something subtler, something quieter. It means that our certainty about the external world is not the kind of certainty we like to pretend it is. It means that what we call reality rests on faith as much as on proof. Not religious faith, not the faith of someone jumping off a cliff hoping wings will appear. A different kind of faith. A practical, everyday faith. The faith of someone who wakes up each morning and walks into a world they trust will behave consistently. Who talks to people they trust are genuinely there. Who loves other beings they trust are capable of being loved. A faith so constant, so deep, so foundational that we do not even call it faith. We call it reality. There is a specific version of the solipsism problem that cuts very close to something most people feel at some point in their lives. It is called the problem of other minds. And it is this: how do you know that anyone else is conscious? Not just whether the external world exists, not just whether physical reality is real, but whether the people in that world, if it exists, are genuinely conscious, whether they have inner lives, whether there is something it is like to be them, the way there is something it is like to be you. You know you are conscious because you are conscious. You have direct first-person access to your own experience. You know what it feels like from the inside. But you have no first-person access to anyone else's experience. You observe their behavior, you hear their words, you see their expressions. You watch them move through the world in ways that look a lot like the ways you move through it, and you infer that they're conscious. But inference is not the same as knowledge. You have never felt anyone else's feelings. You have never seen the world through anyone else's eyes. You have never been inside anyone else's experience. For all you can directly verify, the people around you could be what philosophers call philosophical zombies, beings that are physically and behaviorally identical to conscious humans, but have no inner life whatsoever. No experience, no feelings, no sense of what it is like to be alive. The light's on, but nobody home. This sounds dark. This sounds like a lonely and frightening idea. But stay with it for a moment, because it reveals something interesting. Think about how you came to believe that other people are conscious. You were not born with that belief as a piece of certain knowledge. You developed it over time through a combination of experience and inference and something that yet might just be instinct. You watched other people react to pain and assumed they felt pain the way you do. You heard other people describe experiences and recognized those descriptions as matching your own. You saw people's faces light up with joy and assumed the joy was real because your face lights up when your joy is real. You extended your own inner life outward. You used yourself as the template for understanding others. This is called the argument from analogy. I know I am conscious. This other being looks like me, behaves like me, describes experiences like mine. Therefore, probably, they are conscious too. It is a reasonable argument. It is the argument we all use all the time, without noticing. But it is an argument, it is reasoning, it is inference, it is not direct experience. You have never directly experienced anyone else's consciousness the way you directly experience your own. And the question solipsism asks very quietly is whether your inference is correct. Maybe it is. Probably it is. Almost certainly the people around you are conscious in the way you are, but almost certainly is not certainly. And in the gap between almost certainly and certainly, a very strange space opens up. There are moments, and perhaps you have had them, when this gap suddenly becomes visible. You are talking to someone you know well, someone familiar, someone you love or care about or have known for years. And for just a moment, a strange, disorienting, passing moment, you become aware that you have no idea what's happening inside them. You see their face, you hear their voice, you know their habits, their patterns, their reactions. But the inner life behind all of that, the actual experience of being them, is completely inaccessible to you. You have never been there. You will never be there. There is a word for this. The philosopher Thomas Nagel wrote about it in an essay that became famous. He was writing about something else, about whether we can understand what it is like to be a bat, but the insight applies more broadly. There is something it is like to be a bat. There is some inner experience of echolocation, of flight, of hanging upside down in the dark that is completely inaccessible to us. We can study bats from the outside forever and still never know what their experience is like from the inside. The same is true of other people. There is something it is like to be the person next to you. There is some inner experience, a whole universe of sensation and thought and memory and feeling that is completely inaccessible to you. You can study them from the outside forever and still never know what their experience is like from the inside. They are, in a certain sense, as mysterious to you as a bat. And you are equally mysterious to them. Each of us enclosed in our own experience. Each of us reaching toward others through language and behavior and touch and expression, never quite bridging the gap. This is one of the beautiful and melancholy truths that solipsism points toward. Not necessarily that other people do not exist, but that even if they do, you can never fully know them, never fully enter their world, never fully share your world with them. Every connection is a bridge over a gap that never quite closes. Every relationship is an act of faith. Every love is a gamble on the reality of another person's inner life. And yet, human beings build these bridges anyway, despite the fundamental inaccessibility of other minds, despite the impossibility of truly knowing what another person's experience is like from the inside, despite the fact that every communication is a translation across an unbridgeable gap. We reach toward each other. We try. We use the imperfect tools of language and gesture and art and music and silence. We sit near each other. We share meals, we tell stories, we laugh at the same things, we cry at the same things. We find in these shared responses something that feels like communion, something that feels like the gap narrowing, even if it never fully closes. And there is something remarkable about that reaching. Think about what it means to tell someone something true about your inner life, something you have never said before, something that lives in the private rooms of your experience. You choose words. The words are imperfect. They are always imperfect, but you choose the best ones you have. You arrange them into a sentence. You speak, and the other person hears, and something in their expression shifts, and they say, "Yes, I know that. I have felt something like that." And for a moment, the gap is not closed but bridged. Two private universes touching at the edges. Two streams of experience flowing separately through time, briefly overlapping. That moment, that recognition, is one of the most profound experiences a human being can have. And it happens against the odds that the words would convey what you meant, against the odds that the other person would have had experiences close enough to yours to recognize what you were describing, against the odds that this encounter at this moment would produce understanding rather than incomprehension. The fact that genuine understanding between people happens at all, given everything we have been exploring tonight about the fundamental privacy of experience, is a kind of miracle. A small one, a very human one, but a miracle nonetheless. There is another dimension to the other mind's problem that we have not yet touched. What about animals? You have no more direct access to an animal's inner experience than you do to another person's. You cannot get inside a dog's consciousness and know what it feels like to be a dog. You observe behavior. You see responses to stimuli. You notice something that looks like joy when the dog runs, something that looks like grief when its companion is gone. You infer. But is the inference right? Scientists spent much of the 20th century insisting that we cannot know whether animals have inner lives, and therefore we should assume they do not. This was called behaviorism, the view that science can only study observable behavior. And consciousness, being unobservable, is outside the domain of science. That view has largely been abandoned. Most scientists now believe that animals, especially mammals and birds, have subjective experiences, that there is something it is like to be a dog, or an elephant, or a crow. But the evidence for this is the same kind of evidence we use for other humans: behavioral similarity, neurological similarity, evolutionary continuity, the same inferences, the same leaps from observed behavior to assumed inner life. And if we are making that inference for dogs and elephants and crows, we might also ask about fish, about insects, about plants, which respond to their environments in complex ways, about bacteria, which communicate chemical signals and adjust their behavior accordingly. Where does consciousness end? Where does inner experience cease to be a meaningful concept? This is the hard problem of consciousness, as the philosopher David Chalmers named it. It is not hard in the sense of difficult, though it is certainly difficult. It is hard in the sense of stubborn, in the sense of resisting solution. The hard problem is this: we can explain, in principle, how the brain processes information. We can explain how neurons fire, how signals propagate, how information is stored and retrieved and integrated. We can explain behavior, why organisms respond to stimuli in the ways they do, how learning works, how memory works. What we cannot explain is why any of this should be accompanied by experience. Why should information processing feel like anything? Why should there be something it is like to be a brain that processes information, rather than just an information processor with nothing going on inside? We do not know. And this is not a gap that will be filled by more neuroscience. More neuroscience will tell us more about how the brain works. But the question of why the workings of the brain are accompanied by subjective experience, why there is an insight to brain activity at all, is a question that no amount of third-person scientific investigation seems able to reach. Because the question is first person. It is a question about the inside. And third-person investigation, observation, measurement, experiment takes place entirely on the outside. Let your body relax a little more now. Breathe slowly. The ideas have been deep, heavy in the way that big thoughts are heavy, not unpleasant, but substantial, like lying under a warm, weighted blanket. You are safe here. Wherever here is, whoever here is, let the thinking float. Let it become less focused, less sharp. Let the questions drift overhead like clouds. You do not need to answer them. You just need to notice them. There is a version of the other mind's problem that most people encounter not in philosophy books, but in ordinary life. You have probably felt it, the sense that you are somehow separate from everyone around you, that your experience of the world is private in a way that cannot be fully communicated, that no matter how well someone knows you, there are rooms inside you that they have never visited. This is not pathological. It is not loneliness in the ordinary sense. It is something more fundamental. The basic condition of being a conscious being. The structural privacy of experience. Your toothache is not accessible to me. My headache is not accessible to you. Your memory of childhood is not something I can enter. My dream last night is not something you can visit. We share information about our inner lives. We describe them. We represent them through language and art and music and gesture. But we do not share the inner lives themselves. Language is translation. Art is translation. Everything we do to communicate our inner life is a translation of something that cannot actually be transported. The poet tries to show you what their grief feels like. They use words that evoke something in you, that something may be close to what they felt. It may be quite different. You cannot check. The musician tries to show you what joy or longing or peace feels like. They produce sounds that move you. The movement may be similar to what they wanted to produce. It may be quite different. We are all translating constantly across a gap that cannot be fully crossed. This is not a problem to be solved. It is a condition to be understood. And understanding it changes something. It makes connection feel more precious, more surprising, more extraordinary. When you feel genuinely understood by another person, when someone says something that makes you feel seen, you are experiencing something remarkable. A rare moment when the translation worked. When the gap was almost bridged. Almost. Now let us consider something that might be a comfort, or might be even stranger than everything we have discussed so far. What if the answer to the problem of other minds is not that other people are definitely there, or definitely not there, but something altogether different? What if the question of whether other minds exist is the wrong question? Some philosophers have suggested this. Some traditions in Eastern philosophy have suggested it for millennia. The idea goes something like this. You experience the world as a separate self, surrounded by other separate things, other people, other objects, an outside world, an inside world. The division seems fundamental. It seems like the basic structure of reality. But what if the division is the illusion? What if consciousness is not something that individual beings have, but something that is? What if awareness itself, the raw fact of experience, the basic quality of there being something it is like to be anything, is not divided up into separate minds, but is one thing, looking at itself from countless perspectives simultaneously? Your mind, my mind, every mind. Not separate pools of awareness in separate containers, but one ocean of awareness, rippling into countless temporary shapes, each shape experiencing itself as a separate self, each shape unaware, for the duration of its existence, that it is the ocean wearing a temporary form. This is not provable. It is not the kind of thing you can run an experiment on, but it is not more implausible than the alternative. And it has a certain elegance. If solipsism says, only my mind is real, everything else is construction, then this view says, only mind is real. And the separation between your mind and mine is the construction, not my dream, not your dream. The dream of awareness itself, dreaming itself into temporary fragments, each one looking out at the others from behind the veil of individuality. Let that image settle. The veil of individuality, the temporary sense of separation between this awareness and that awareness. You, reading this, the voice speaking these words, the distant city, the sleeping world, all of it awareness, wearing different masks. All of it the same thing, looking at itself. Let us stay with this image a little longer before we move on, because it opens something that is worth spending time with. If awareness is the fundamental thing, if experience is not something the universe produces, but something the universe is, then the separation you feel from the world around you is different from what it usually seems to be. Usually when you feel separate, when you feel the gap between yourself and others, between your inner life and the outer world, it feels like a wall, a barrier, something that divides the real you from everything else. But what if the separation is more like the surface of a wave? A wave is genuinely separate from other waves. It has its own shape, its own height, its own direction and speed. It is real. It is distinct. But it is not made of different stuff from the ocean it moves through. It is the ocean, temporarily taking this shape. And when it subsides, the ocean does not lose anything. It simply stops being a wave. What if you are something like that? A particular shape of awareness. A temporary configuration of the one thing that exists. Real, distinct, genuinely yourself. Not an illusion, but not fundamentally separate from the awareness that is everything else. This does not solve the problem of solipsism. It does not answer whether the physical world is real or whether other people are conscious. But it reframes the aloneness. If you are the only real consciousness and the consciousness is the wave, then there is still an ocean. There is still something you are part of, something you are made of, something that will still be there when this particular shape has dissolved. Here is something that is easy to overlook when we discuss solipsism. The theory, even in its strongest form, does not claim that nothing happens. It does not claim that the experience is empty. Quite the opposite. The experience, whatever generates it, is extraordinarily rich. Think about the sheer complexity of what you have experienced in your lifetime. The faces of people you have loved, the details of places you remember, the texture of important moments, a childhood smell, the sound of rain on a particular window, the feeling of receiving unexpected good news, the specific quality of grief. If all of this is a construction, if it has all been generated by your own awareness without an external source, then your awareness is producing something of staggering beauty and complexity. The sunsets you have seen, the music that has moved you, the books that changed how you think, the conversations that went late into the night and altered something in you, the laughter of people you love. If you made all of that in the most radical solipsist picture, you made it beautifully. Your mind, dreaming, has created a world of extraordinary richness, a world that contains art and music and mathematics, a world that contains kindness and cruelty and everything between, a world that contains questions, including this one, that are rich enough to be asked and thought about for thousands of years. If that is a dream, it is an astonishing dream. Now the voice is going to slow a little more. The ideas have been large, and the night has been long enough. Let your body sink deeper into wherever it rests. Your breathing is slow and steady. The thinking can become softer now, less focused, like watching thoughts from a distance rather than sitting inside them. We have one more major territory to explore tonight, but we will move through it gently, slowly, like walking through a garden in the dark. Philosophers have generally tried to refute solipsism. Most of them feel that it cannot be right, that the external world is real, that other people are genuinely conscious. That reality is not a private dream. They are almost certainly correct. But the attempts to refute solipsism have produced something unexpected. They have not found a clean, decisive argument that closes the question. They have instead produced a rich map of how uncertain our knowledge really is, and how remarkable it is that we function as well as we do despite that uncertainty. The philosopher G.E. Moore, in the early 20th century, offered what became famous as the most common sense response to solipsism. He held up his hand. He said, "Here is one hand, and here is another. Therefore, the external world exists." He was not being naive. He was making a sophisticated point about where philosophical certainty actually lives. He was saying that no philosophical argument should be able to convince us to doubt something as basic and immediate as the existence of our own hands, because any argument that led to that conclusion would be less certain than the thing it was trying to disprove. We should be more confident in the evidence of our senses than in any chain of abstract reasoning. This is sometimes called the argument from common sense, and it has a lot of appeal, but notice what it does not do. It does not disprove solipsism. It does not show that the external world exists with certainty. It says we have more reason to trust our senses than to trust abstract philosophical arguments that undermine them, which is a practical point, a livable point. But it leaves the deep question open. Ludwig Wittgenstein, one of the most important philosophers of the 20th century, approached the problem from a different angle. He said something like this: even if solipsism is true, even if only my experience is real, what exactly does that mean in practice? If the solipsist says, only I exist, and then goes on to live their life, talk to people, eat breakfast, read books, fall in love, what has been added or subtracted by the solipsist position? Wittgenstein thought that solipsism, if taken seriously and followed all the way through, collapses into something that looks exactly like ordinary reality. If you are the only real conscious being, but you are experiencing a convincing world full of apparently conscious people, and you cannot tell the difference between this and a world where they are genuinely conscious, what is the difference? What does the theory of solipsism actually change? His point is subtle. He is not saying solipsism is true. He is saying that its truth or falsehood might make no practical difference whatsoever. And in that sense, it might be what philosophers call an empty theory, a theory that sounds dramatic but explains nothing, predicts nothing, and changes nothing about how we live. Wittgenstein also made another point that strikes close to home. He argued that the very language we use to discuss solipsism, the words, the concepts, the logical structure of the argument, is not something any individual mind creates alone. Language is a social phenomenon. It grows up in communities. It is learned from other speakers. It carries the accumulated meaning of countless conversations between countless minds across time. If you were truly the only conscious being, if other minds had never really existed, then language itself would be different, or might not exist at all. The fact that you can think about solipsism, that you have the concepts and the vocabulary to even articulate the question suggests that you did not develop your mind in isolation. You developed it in relation to other minds. You are a social creature, even in your most private thoughts. The voice inside your head that thinks and reasons and wonders, that voice, is made of language you learned from others, shaped by conversations you had, books you read, ideas you encountered in a world full of other apparently conscious beings. Even your solitude is populated. The philosopher Albert Camus, though he was not primarily concerned with solipsism, wrote something that bears on it. He was writing about what he called the absurd, the gap between the human need for meaning and the universe's apparent silence on the subject. The universe does not explain itself. It does not justify itself. It does not answer when we ask why. And Camus's response to this was not despair and not denial. It was something he called revolt. Not revolt against the universe. You cannot fight something that large and that indifferent. But revolt in the sense of refusing to pretend the problem is not real, refusing to look away, refusing to fill the silence with comforting stories that are not true, living with the open question, and finding in that openness not misery but a strange, clear-eyed freedom. Something similar is possible with solipsism. You cannot resolve it. You cannot step outside your own experience to check whether the world is real. The question stays open, but you can live with the open question. You can hold the uncertainty and find that it does not prevent you from being here, does not prevent you from feeling what you feel, does not prevent you from reaching toward the apparently other people and letting them reach toward you. In fact, holding the uncertainty might make you more present to the experience you are having, because if this moment, whatever it is the the thing you can be certain of, then this moment deserves your full attention, not frantic attention, not anxious grasping, gentle, full, unhurried attention, the attention you give to something rare and precious, which everything on reflection turns out to be. There is a practice in certain contemplative traditions, Buddhist, Christian, Hindu, of what might be called radical presence. The practice of being fully in the experience of this moment, without resistance, without grasping, without the constant mental commentary that usually runs alongside experience. Most of the time, you are not simply having your experience. You are having your experience and simultaneously narrating it, evaluating it, comparing it to other experiences, worrying about future experiences, regretting past ones. The experience is overlaid with commentary. The present moment is overlaid with everything that is not present. The practice of radical presence in meditation, in contemplative prayer, in certain forms of psychotherapy, is the practice of stripping away the overlay, of letting experience be experience, of being here in this moment as it actually is, without the running commentary. And when this succeeds even briefly, even imperfectly, what is found is interesting. Not a blank nothing, not empty silence, something vivid and immediate and surprising, something that feels more real than the narrated, evaluated, compared experience of ordinary consciousness. Something that the philosopher Eckhart Tolle called the now, that the Buddhist teachers called presence, that the Christian mystics called the eternal moment. And in this state, in this direct, unmediated experience of the moment, the question of whether the world is real or dreamed becomes genuinely unimportant, not because it is answered, but because the question belongs to a different mode of being, a mode that is temporarily suspended, a mode that is made of thought and language and comparison. And what is here in the absence of that mode is simply experience, raw, direct, undeniable. Something in you knows this, not as a philosophy, not as an idea, but as a fact of experience. There are moments in your life when the thinking stopped, when you were so absorbed in something, a piece of music, a landscape, the face of someone you love, an act of creation, that the usual mental commentary fell silent. And in that silence, something was present that is hard to describe. A quality of vividness, a sense of being exactly here, exactly now, a feeling that is not happiness exactly, but something like rightness, like arrival, like this is what it is supposed to feel like to be alive. These moments are rare in ordinary life, but they are not unfamiliar. You have been there. And in those moments, the question of whether you are the only real consciousness in the universe would not have occurred to you. Because in those moments, the boundary between you and what you were experiencing, the music, the landscape, the face, the creative act, was thin, permeable, almost not there. In those moments, the self that was wondering about solipsism had temporarily stepped aside, and what remained was just experience, just awareness, just this. A theory that sounds dramatic, but explains nothing, predicts nothing, and changes nothing about how we live. But I want to push back on Wittgenstein slightly, because I think solipsism does change something. Not practically, not in terms of what you do from day to day, but in terms of how you experience what you do. Consider what happens when you take the solipsis question seriously, not as a belief, but as a question. If you cannot be certain that other people are conscious, if their inner lives are genuinely inaccessible to you, then the moments when you feel connected to another person become extraordinary. You said something and they understood, not just intellectually, but genuinely. They recognized something in what you said that matched something in their experience. The translation worked. The gap narrowed, just for a moment. That is remarkable. Given everything we have been exploring tonight, that is a miracle of a small kind. Two apparently separate streams of experience flowing in parallel for all of their existence, somehow managing to intersect, somehow managing to recognize each other. The impossibility of perfect communication makes actual communication feel more precious. The uncertainty about other minds makes the moments of genuine connection feel more surprising. The fact that love is a gamble on the reality of another person's inner life makes love feel braver than it usually does. Here is another thing solipsism quietly teaches. If the only certainty is your own experience, if the only thing you can be absolutely sure of is the fact that something is happening right now in whatever this awareness is, then this moment matters enormously, not this moment in a dramatic, anxious way, not in a way that makes you feel you need to do something with it, achieve something, justify it in some way, but in a simple, radical way. This moment is happening. This experience is real. Whatever else is true or uncertain, wherever the external world sits on the spectrum between definitely real and possibly imagined, the fact that experience is happening right now is undeniable. And experience awareness is the most remarkable thing there is. The universe has produced somehow something that looks at itself, something that asks questions about itself, something that lies awake at night, wondering whether it is the only thing that exists. That is extraordinary, no matter how you explain it. If materialism is true, if the brain produces consciousness from purely physical processes, then the emergence of consciousness from matter is the most astonishing event in the history of the universe. If some form of idealism is true, if consciousness is the fundamental stuff of reality, and matter is what it looks like from the outside, then you are not a small thing in a large universe. You are the universe, experiencing itself. If something else is true, some view we have not yet imagined, some synthesis that makes the current debate look like two blind men arguing about an elephant, then awareness, experience, the fact of there being something it is like to be here, is still at the center of whatever the answer is. Consciousness is the one thing that cannot be explained away. It is the one thing that no matter what philosophy you hold, you have to put somewhere in the picture. And tonight, lying in the dark, listening to these words drift past, you are that consciousness. You are the thing the universe produced in order to know itself. And right now, right here, in whatever this moment is, you are doing exactly that. Breathe slowly. The ideas have been large, and the night is moving deeper. Let the thoughts become lighter now, less structured, less precise, like clouds rather than stones, like water rather than glass. Rather, there is something peaceful in the solipsist picture when you come to it from the right angle. If this moment, this experience, is all that can be verified, then this moment is enough. You do not need to solve the mysteries of the universe before you can rest. You do not need to know whether the world is real, whether other people are conscious, whether consciousness is fundamental or emergent, or something else entirely. You just need to be here in this experience, which is the only place you have ever been, which is the only place you can be. The ancient philosopher Epictetus, who was a Stoic, said something that rhymes with this in an unexpected way. He said, divide all things into two categories: things in your power, things not in your power. In your power, your thoughts, your responses, your values, your choices. Not in your power, everything else: the weather, other people's behavior, the past, the future, what happens to your body, what the world does. He said, concentrate on what is in your power and let go of what is not. There is a version of solipsism that lands in exactly the same place. The only thing you can be certain of is your own experience. The only thing you can directly access is the interior of your own consciousness. Everything outside that is, in a sense, not in your power, not fully knowable, not fully graspable. So what remains? This, the experience, the awareness, the quiet fact of being here. Let your breathing slow even further now. The night is deep. The world outside, real or dreamed, is quiet. Your body is heavy and warm. The ideas have been doing their work, and now they can rest. Now they can float. We have been speaking of philosophy and neuroscience. Let us move now into a stranger territory. A territory where scientists and mystics have, from completely different directions, arrived at conclusions that sound remarkably similar and that bear a striking resemblance to solipsism. In the early 20th century, physicists began doing experiments that produced results nobody knew how to explain. These were experiments with subatomic particles, electrons, photons, the smallest known constituents of matter. And what they found defied everything that classical physics had assumed about the nature of reality. The most famous of these experiments is called the double-slit experiment. Here's what it involves. You take a beam of electrons, tiny particles, and fire them at a barrier with two narrow slits. Behind the barrier is a detector screen that records where the electrons land. If electrons are particles, little bullets, you would expect them to land in two clusters, one behind each slit, like grains of sand fired through two narrow openings. But that is not what happens. What happens is that the electrons create an interference pattern, a pattern of alternating bands of many hits and few hits, spreading across the entire screen. This is the pattern you get when waves pass through two slits and interfere with each other. Waves create interference patterns. Particles do not, but electrons are particles. But electrons, unless somehow each individual electron is passing through both slits simultaneously, as a wave of probability, existing in a kind of superposition all possible positions at once until it is detected, and then it is detected, and then it lands in one specific place. The wave collapses. The probability resolves. The particle appears. Physicists found this disturbing. They tried to figure out what was happening. They added detectors at the slits to see which slit each electron actually went through. And something stranger happened. The moment they added detectors, the moment they measured which slit the electron went through, the interference pattern disappeared. The electrons started behaving like particles again, as if the act of observation of measurement collapsed the wave of probability and forced the electron to choose, as if the electron was, in some sense, responding to being watched. The physicist Niels Bohr, one of the founders of quantum mechanics, spent decades thinking about this. His Copenhagen interpretation of quantum mechanics says something that sounds almost mystical. The wave function, the probability distribution that describes where the electron might be, is the complete description of the electron's state before measurement. There is no fact of the matter about which slit the electron went through before you measure it. There is only a probability distribution. Reality, at the quantum level, is not determinate until it is observed, which raises a question that physicists have been arguing about ever since. What counts as an observation? Does it require a conscious observer? Does consciousness play a role in collapsing the wave function, in turning probability into actuality? Most physicists resist this conclusion. They want a physical explanation for collapse that does not involve consciousness. But the question will not quite go away, and some serious physicists, including John von Neumann, Eugene Wigner, and more recently John Wheeler, have suggested that consciousness cannot be left out of the picture. Wheeler proposed something he called the participatory universe. The universe, he suggested, requires observers to bring it into being. It is not a fixed stage on which events play out. It is something that becomes actual through the act of observation, through participation. The universe, in Wheeler's picture, is a participatory enterprise. It needs observers. It needs awareness. And in a universe of 13.8 billion years, where stars burned for billions of years before any conscious eye looked at them, Wheeler suggested that perhaps our present observations reach back through time in some quantum sense to participate in making the early universe real. This is deeply strange. It is not mainstream physics. Most physicists hold it at arm's length, but it is not crazy. And it resonates in an unexpected way with something very old, with the idea that consciousness is not a product of the universe, but a participant in it. That awareness is not something the universe generated as an afterthought, as a byproduct of complex matter, but something the universe is made of, or made through, or made for. There is another interpretation of quantum mechanics that takes a completely different approach to the measurement problem. It's called the many worlds interpretation, and it was proposed by Hugh Everett in 1957. Everett's idea is disarmingly simple, and its implications are staggering. He said the wave function never collapses, it just keeps going. When you measure which slit the electron goes through, both possibilities continue to exist, but they exist in separate branches of reality. In one branch, the electron went through the left slit. In another, it went through the right slit. Both branches are equally real. Both continue to develop and expand. You, the observer, also split. In one branch of reality, you see the electron go through the left slit. In another branch of reality, you see it go through the right slit. Both versions of you are real. Both continue to exist. This happens constantly, for every quantum event, for every measurement, for every point where reality branches new worlds split off. an uncountable, constantly expanding tree of parallel realities, each one as real as every other. In this picture, there is no collapse. There is no special role for the observer. There's no measurement problem. There's just the wave function, expanding forever, branching into every possible version of events. The many worlds interpretation is taken seriously by many physicists. It has mathematical elegance. It removes the need for any special role for consciousness. But it comes with a cost that is almost impossible to fully absorb. Every possible version of your life is happening. Right now, in other branches of the wave function, you made different choices, took different paths, had different conversations. You are living thousands of parallel lives simultaneously, each one in its own branch of reality, each one completely unaware of the others. The version of you in this moment listening to this voice, in this darkness, is one thread in an infinite tapestry. Not the only thread, not the central thread. One thread among countless others, all equally real, all continuing, none of them able to communicate with the others. In that picture, you are not alone in the universe. You are more accompanied than you can possibly imagine, by an infinite number of versions of yourself, by an infinite number of versions of everyone else, by a branching, expanding universe of every possible experience, every possible outcome, every possible version of events. But none of those other versions of you are accessible to you. None of the other threads in the tapestry can be touched or seen or heard. From inside your branch, it is as if the others do not exist. From inside your branch, it is as if you are alone, which brings us curiously back to something that rhymes with solipsism. Not that other minds do not exist, but that the only minds accessible to you are the ones in your branch. The only world available to you is the one you are in. The only experience you can have is your experience. Whether the universe has one branch or infinite branches, you are living in exactly one of them. And from inside that one, the question of what exists outside it is unanswerable. Breathe. Let the immensity of these ideas float. Do not try to hold them. Do not try to understand them completely. No one does. The physicists who work with these ideas professionally spend their careers learning to function inside the uncertainty, to do the mathematics without needing the philosophy to resolve. You can do something similar tonight. You can hold the questions without needing answers. You can float in the uncertainty and find it if you let yourself rather comfortable, rather spacious, rather interesting. The universe is stranger than it appears. Your experience of it is more constructed than it seems. Your knowledge of other minds is more indirect than you usually notice. And all of this is happening inside something, awareness, consciousness, experience, that is the most mysterious and undeniable thing there is. Ancient traditions said it differently. The Upanishads, written in India perhaps 3,000 years ago, say something like this: the eye cannot see itself. The mind cannot know itself as an object. What knows cannot be known in the way that other things are known. But what knows is the ground of everything. Neti neti. Not this, not this. Every object you can point to, every experience you can describe, every thought you can have that is not it, that is the thing being known, not the knower. The knower is the one thing that cannot be turned into an object, cannot be made into a thing you look at. You can look at your thoughts, but you cannot become an object of your own awareness in the same way. You are always the awareness looking, never the thing looked at. And this awareness, this basic fact of experience, this unreducible consciousness, is what the Upanishads identifies as the foundation of reality. Not matter, not energy, not space or time. Awareness itself, immarkable. Not because they are saying the same thing. They are coming from completely different traditions, asking completely different questions, using completely different tools, but they arrive at a similar puzzlement. Matter, looked at closely enough, seems to lose its solidity, seems to become something that depends on being looked at to be definite. seems to require a perspective, an observation, a measurement to resolve from possibility into actuality. And what provides the perspective? What does the observing? Awareness. You. If you are the only real consciousness in the universe, if solipsism is true in its strongest form, then you are not a small, isolated, fragile thing surrounded by an incomprehensibly large and indifferent cosmos. You are the thing the cosmos requires in order to be real. The universe does not contain you. You contain the universe. Every star you have ever looked at, every mountain, every ocean, every person, every dream, every idea, all of it exists in the only sense you can verify, inside the awareness that is you. We are deep into the night now. The thinking has done its work. The questions are still there. They will still be there in the morning. They have been there for thousands of years, and they will remain long after tonight. But something has changed. Perhaps. A little. The questions feel different when you have sat with them long enough. They feel less threatening, less urgent, more like companions than like threats. There is a story that comes from Zen Buddhism. A monk asks his teacher, "What is Buddha?" The teacher says, 3 pounds of flax. It makes no sense. It is not meant to make sense in the ordinary way. It is meant to stop the question, to drop the questioner out of the mode of seeking an answer and into the mode of simply being present. Because the question, what is Buddha, what is reality, what is consciousness, what is the self, is not the kind of question that has an answer in the ordinary sense. It is the kind of question that, when held long enough, transforms the person holding it, not by being answered, but by opening something, by loosening the grip of ordinary certainty, by making the asker more permeable, more present, more willing to simply be here without knowing everything about what here is. Tonight has been something like that. Not an answer to solipsism, not a resolution, but an opening, a long, careful, unhurried walk around the edges of the deepest question you can ask. And the question is still there. The uncertainty is still there. But perhaps you are wearing it more lightly now. Perhaps it sits on you like a comfortable blanket rather than pressing down like a stone. Think about the people you love. If solipsism were true, if they were constructions of your mind, elaborate and detailed and consistent, what would that say about them? It would say that some part of you that you have no conscious access to created them, created their faces, their voices, their habits, the way one of them laughs, the way another one listens, the things that make each of them irreducibly themselves. If you made them beautifully. Oh, and the love you feel for them is no less real for being something that happens entirely within the compass of your awareness. Love is not less real for being experienced inside a mind. It is perhaps the most real thing there is. More real in its way than tables and chairs and the physical world we argue about, because love is not something you infer. Love is something you feel directly, immediately, without doubt. If you are the only real person in the universe, then the universe made sure you would not know it. It built you into a world full of other apparent people. It gave you relationships. It gave you language and music and story. It gave you the feeling of being known by another person, the feeling of belonging somewhere, the feeling of being part of something larger than yourself. Whether those feelings correspond to something genuinely external, or whether they are the universe giving itself these gifts in the only way it knows how. They are still gifts. They're still real. They still matter. What remains when the thinking stops is the same thing that was there before the thinking began. Awareness, the simple fact of being here, being present, being. You have always been here, even when you were not aware of it, even in dreamless sleep, when the thoughts and the experiences stop completely. Something is still here. The body continues, the heart beats, the lungs breathe, The cells divide and repair and maintain. Life goes on. Awareness waits. Patient, constant. The same awareness that was here when you first woke up this morning. The same awareness that was here when you were a child. The same awareness that will be here tomorrow. In the Upanishads, there is a teaching about the 4 states of consciousness: waking, dreaming, dreamless sleep, and a 4th called turiya, which is not a state at all, but the awareness in which the other 3 occur. Like the screen on which a film plays. The screen is not the waking scene. The screen is not the dreaming scene. The screen is not even the darkness between scenes. The screen is just the screen, always present, never changing, letting everything appear and disappear upon it. You are, in this teaching, the screen, not the film. Whether you are the only conscious being in the universe, or one among billions, or a temporary shape of the one awareness that is everything, it does not matter now. All of those ideas belong to the waking mind, and the waking mind is almost asleep. Breath moves in, slows, moves out. The thoughts are clouds, very high, very far away. The awareness is here, still, quiet, open, like the sky, through which the clouds move. You are the sky, not the clouds. The sky is always there. Even when it is full of clouds, the sky is there, holding them, letting them move, letting them dissolve. A thought arises. The sky notices. The thought dissolves. The sky remains. Another thought, lighter this time. Barely a thought, more like the memory of a thought. The sky. Still here. Awareness. Here. Breath. In, out. In, out. The universe continues its mysterious business. Real or dreamed, known or unknowable. You are here. That is the only answer you need tonight. You are here, and that is everything. What remains after the thinking stops, after the questions dissolve, after the philosophers and the mystics and the neuroscientists have said their piece and stepped back into silence. What remains? Just this quiet, this awareness, this simple, undemanding fact of being here. Whether the world is real or dreamed, it is yours. All of it. Every beautiful thing you have ever seen, every person who has ever mattered to you, every piece of music that reached somewhere inside you and rearranged something, every moment of genuine peace, every moment of genuine joy, every question that kept you awake at night, wondering. A small, warm, quiet point of awareness, asking nothing, needing nothing, being, just being. Whether alone in the universe or accompanied by billions, the awareness is here. The awareness has always been here, before any thought about it, before any question about it, just here. Just this. Breathe in, breathe out, let the questions go. They will be there when you wake up. They have been waiting thousands of years. They can wait until morning. Right now, this awareness, this breath, this quiet is enough, is more than enough, is everything. Good night.